Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which is brought to you in partnership between Integrity Systems Company and Queensland Government's Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. My name is Cherie Young, and I'm the Communications Manager here at ISC, and I'll be your host for the webinar today. This webinar is designed to help you all better understand the red meat integrity system and how it works to ensure our industry continues to produce quality red meat that is both safe to eat and fully traceable. We thank you very much for taking the time out today to join us for this webinar, and also for those who submitted their questions in the registration process. We'll be doing our best to answer those questions in our Q&A box today as this webinar takes place. I just wanted to let you know we've got representatives from ISC and from the Queensland Department online to answer questions as well. So as they come into your mind during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer them. I also just wanted to let you know that the session today is being recorded, and in the coming days we'll send out a pack of information to you all with the recording, the questions and the answers that have been asked and answered today, and some other resources to help you support you with the content that we're going to cover off today. So just as a bit of an overview, this is the agenda that we're going to follow. So I'll start off the webinar with a description and a bit of overview of ISC and the red meat integrity system and how that all works together. And then Elizabeth Bradley, who's ISC's Quality and Compliance Manager, she will join. She'll come in and take you all through the Livestock Production Assurance Program, or LPA. She'll touch on a new self-assessment process that's coming into that program, and also cover off the harvested rangeland goats module. After Elizabeth, George Basher will join the webinar. He's ISC's Operation Analyst. He knows the NLIS inside and out, and he will take you through a live demonstration of the NLIS database and the key functions that you need to be across, particularly focusing on property-to-property transfers and key functions that are just part of when livestock are being moved. Then we'll have Janet Valier. She's the Principal Policy Officer at Biosecurity Queensland, and Janet will finish off the webinar with some Queensland-specific information about sheep and goat eID and just specific information that you need to know for your state. So don't forget, put your questions in the Q&A box. We've got George, Elizabeth, Callum from ISC's customer service team, and Janet and Doug McNaught online to answer those questions for you. So pop them in and we'll do our best to get the responses to you. So just next one for me is just a bit of a high level about ISC for those that might not know. ISC was formed in 2017, and its chief task is to manage the red meat integrity system. The integrity system's key focus is on-farm assurance and animal identification and traceability. So ensuring that we meet these key requirements means that Australia will continue to be able to access the global markets that we do today. So ISC as a company is guided by two groups: the Safe Meat, which is a partnership between industry and government, and the Supply Chain Task Force, which is a group made up of representatives from the peak industry councils across the industry. So this next slide is a diagram which shows where ISC fits in into the picture. So as you can see, ISC, we are a wholly owned subsidiary of MLA, and together with MLA, we work to support and provide services to industry. So that gives you a bit of an overview of how that all works. Now, this slide takes you on a bit more of a deeper dive into ISC and our key programs. So the NLIS, the National Livestock Identification System, is Australia's system for the identification and traceability of cattle, sheep and goats. So it reflects our commitment to biosecurity and food safety, and it's a key part of what provides us with that competitive advantage in a global market. All animals are identified with an accredited NLIS tag or device from their property of birth. And as these animals are bought, sold and moved along the supply chain, each movement is recorded on the NLIS database. And using this information, the database is able to provide a life history of an animal's movement. So The system itself is underpinned by state and territory legislation, and it enhances our ability to track livestock during disease and food safety incidents. So it's a really important system. Now, the current NLIS system has been around now for over 25 years, or over 20 years, not quite 25 years, but a major project is underway now to develop a new and more user-friendly system. So that new NLIS system is due to be delivered by the 30th of June 2026, and we're really looking forward to bringing that to you because it will offer a substantially improved user experience, which will be really wonderful to see when it's fully developed. Now, the other key program that we look after at IC is the Livestock Production Assurance Program, or LPA. So it's your on-farm assurance program. It underpins our market access for Australian red meat. It covers off the management of biosecurity, animal welfare, and food safety. And accreditation with that program provides you as a producer with that tick of assurance for your product as it travels from yourself all the way through to the consumer. So it demonstrates the professionalism of our industry. And again, it underpins our market access. Now, in the middle of those two, we've got the LPA NVD or the LPA eNVD, the electronic version. NVDs and eNVDs are legal documents which communicate the food safety and treatment status of every animal as it moves through the chain. So the central component that links all of this together is your property identification code, which is allocated to you by your state and territory department, and it's an 8-digit code which is your personal identifier. So you will need to have this to register for both LPA and NLIS. So that's, I guess, in a nutshell, an overview of the key ISC programs. So the next one I just want to cover off is the objectives. So what are the integrity system objectives? Number one, I guess, is that the LPA and NLIS are linked through the property identification code system to bring quality, food safety, and animal welfare and traceability all together in that one system. The next objective is that the NVDs or the eNVDs are used to prove that the LPA requirements have been met as the stock moves through the chain. Having these declarations and additional attachments digitally held in the system mean they stay with the animals on their journey and are not lost or damaged along the way. And they don't become hard to read, as can be the case with paper forms. Another key objective is that all our LPA accredited producers are supported in running their farm business in accordance with the LPA requirements, as this ultimately gets us to the end point we all want, that Australian red meat is safe to eat, is of high quality, and remains in demand all over the world. So now, before I hand you over to Elizabeth to talk a bit more about LPA, I just wanted to leave you with my top 3 integrity takeaways, because there is a lot to cover today, but I just wanted to leave you with these. Top tip number 1 is to renew your LPA accreditation when it falls due. You will get a notification by letter, email, or SMS when the time is coming, and we really encourage you to use this renewal process as an opportunity to make sure you're across the LPA requirements and have all your records in order. This includes things like having a biosecurity plan ready and all your records up to date. The next one is by keeping your accreditation up to date means you have very fast and easy access to the NVDs or the eNVD system. Now, the eNVD system has undergone quite a lot of improvement over the last 12 months to make it more accessible to different user types. So we really encourage you to give it a go. There's lots of help online, and we can send out resources after this webinar as well to help support you in using the eNVD. It's important to know you can SMS or email a submitted consignment to your transporter or other receivers if they're not using eNVD. It's good to check in with them first, but it's really important to remember that there is that functionality as well. The last top tip before I move on might seem pretty simple, but it does get confusing with to make sure that you use your species-specific NLIS approved devices to identify your livestock. So in a nutshell, sheep tags for sheep and goats for goats. It's really important that you remember that, and Elizabeth will have a bit more info on what to look out for on the tags to make sure you've got the right ones. But on that note, I will now hand over to Elizabeth, who will take you through the LPA and some changes that are coming through for that program. So over to you, Elizabeth.
Great, thanks, Cherie. Hi, everyone. As Cherie mentioned, I'm going to run you through the Livestock Production Assurance Program and a little bit about NLIS. So LPA is our on-farm assurance program for food safety, animal welfare and biosecurity, and it's one of my favourite things that I look after. Just as a reminder, LPA provides a lot of value to the red meat industry. It helps support our access to our international markets, which puts money in your pocket as a producer. And yeah, we're up around that $74.5 billion value mark for our entire industry. So it's really important that everyone's in this program and providing the assurance that our customers need in order to continue to buy our red meat. In terms of LPA, there's some changes that are coming in on the 1st of September, which is a new set of LPA program rules, which basically talks about how the program operates. So the rules actually will include a number of changes, but the key one being around the self-assessment tool at accreditation time when you sign up for the first time or when you're completing re-accreditation. The new rules make the program more scalable and easier to administer and understand as well. So there's a suite of changes coming to make things better and more valuable for the industry as well. So we've got allowances in there to create voluntary modules, which allow us to add on voluntary modules of assurance for producers. Also to use ENVD more to make declarations on those ENVDs as they move through the supply chain. Sharing audit outcomes to reduce the compliance burden on you if you're operating in another compliance program. And also just clarifying a lot of different processes around audits, accreditation, and then how we can handle complaints within the program as well. So lots of things to make the program better, but overall nothing that you need to action immediately in the short term. One of the things that you'll notice next time you touch base with us and complete re-accreditation or accreditation for the first time is that the multiple choice quiz will be replaced with the self-assessment tool. So it's actually a bit faster to do than the existing quiz, and it's aimed to help you improve your awareness and understanding of the LPA requirements. So really helping you understand the program. It also provides you with a customised recommendations report at the end of that process, which you can then use to implement changes and improvements on your property as well. So it's all about improving the experience for you and making it a bit easier and nicer to complete. So that we're really excited to launch this at the start of September. So next time you touch base with us and re-accredit, you should see that pop up when you do so. The LPA learning also remains available on demand, so that's not going away. It's still sitting there for you to complete at any time as well. The other key change with the LPA rules coming out is the new harvested rangeland goat voluntary module. So this module is to support the harvested rangeland goat sector of the goat industry to move eligible harvested rangeland goats without an eID being applied through a goat depot process or direct to slaughter. So this is a brand new requirement within LPA. To sign up for it, you need to have LPA accreditation and then apply through your LPA account to add this module onto your accreditation. That requires state government approval as well. So you'll need to have your approval from the Queensland government in order to participate in this module. And then once you are approved, you'll be able to purchase a new harvested rangeland goat NVD and move harvested rangeland goats without a tag. So it's very much an approval process that you need to go through to be able to be in this module, but it is part of the LPA process as well. So harvested rangeland goats are those goats that are captured from a wild state that haven't been born as a result of a managed breeding program, and they haven't been subject to any animal husbandry procedures or treatment. So really quite clear in that definition. It hasn't changed from what it was currently, but definitely that's what's make a goat eligible for a tag-free movement. Registered goat depots will also need to be approved in the harvested rangeland goat voluntary module to access that new harvested rangeland goat NVD as well. This is just an overview of the actual process. If you are a harvested rangeland goat capturer, you need to have LPA accreditation for goats, apply for that module. With your registered biosecurity entity with Queensland, you'll do that in duality with your RBE, with the state government, to get your approval. Provide that approval with your LPA, and then eligible goats can be moved without the eID being applied as a harvested rangeland goat on that new National Vendor Declaration. So there will be a new version of the goat NVD, as well as a new harvested rangeland goat NVD from the 1st of October as well. Now, onto the main requirements around the LPA program, just to brush up everyone on the requirements. So there are 7 mandatory modules within LPA, which are up on the screen, and I'll just run through each of them in terms of the key things you need to remember. So first of all, we talk about food safety in LPA, and the first module is around property risk assessment. So this is just around having a documented risk assessment about your property, identifying any contamination risks, and then how you mitigate those risks actually contaminating your livestock. So it can be very simple, it can be on your farm map. If you don't have any risks, it's important just to note that down as well. The second module within LPA is around your animal treatment. So if you do administer any veterinary treatments or drugs or medicines to your animals, making sure you're keeping really full and complete accurate records of those treatments. And that's important when you're filling out NVDs, to make sure you know if you've got any animals in a withholding period or an export slaughter interval that you need to declare on that NVD. So record keeping and animal treatment records is really, really important, and that's the key requirement around Module 2. Module 3 is around what you're feeding livestock. So any chemical use on the property or on pasture where livestock might be eating, or any bought-in food. You need to be aware of any chemical residue issues with bought-in food. So requesting commodity vendor declarations if you're bringing in hay or silage or grain or whatever it is. And then if you are using chemicals on the property, making sure that you've got full and complete records of that chemical use, and managing where your grazing is going in after those withhold periods have expired on those chemical applications. So really important, again, to make sure that if you do have animals graze through or eat something that's in a withhold period, you can declare that on the outgoing NVD if they're still within that period of time. And the fourth food safety requirement is around your fit to load requirements as well. So this is around making sure that only animals that are fit for the intended journey are loaded onto that truck, and that you have good facilities, yards, and assembly practices to ensure welfare. The other one is around making sure you're using reputable transporters, and that the time of feed and water is being applied so you don't have any contamination issues as well during that transport. So that's the key food safety requirements around LPA. The other one is around biosecurity and animal welfare. So biosecurity requirements to have a documented farm biosecurity plan and be recording your people, vehicles and equipment entering, coming and going. It's important to have this on hand and review it regularly to make sure that you've got your on-farm biosecurity practices down pat. The other requirement in LPA is animal welfare. So animal welfare refers to the Australian standards and guidelines, which are species specific. So there's some for cattle, some for sheep and some for goats. So having a copy of those standards on hand is a requirement. So is having done your LPA training module in the animal welfare standards and guidelines, and also training any staff who are performing animal husbandry practices. So the key requirements around welfare at that point. And finally, but probably most importantly, we have livestock transactions and movements within LPA. And so this one's all around your NVD completions and your NLIS requirements. So I break it into 2 different sections. It helps me kind of clarify it down, is around incoming livestock and then dispatching livestock or moving them on. So when you're bringing livestock onto the property, if you do so, make sure you get a copy of the LPA NVD for those animals from the person you're getting them from, and noting down any withhold periods or any information on that NVD that's applicable to those animals, and keeping a copy of them as well. Also, if you're buying in stock, it's your responsibility to record that movement on the NLIS database within 2 days of their arrival. So if you're not doing it yourself on the NLIS database and you're using an agent, make sure that you get that upload ID or log on and check that they've done it, so that you don't get caught up when you go to then sell those animals on in the future. If you're using a sale yard, they'll do that movement for you, but definitely if you're bringing them onto your property any other way, make sure you're checking that movement's been done. The other side of the equation is dispatching livestock. So if you're moving livestock to another pick that you own, or you're selling them on through the sale yard or anything like that, making sure that you've got a movement record, so that's your national vendor declaration, filled out for that movement, and it's going with that consignment. So that can be the eID, or it could be a paper one if you're still using the books. It's important to keep a copy of all your outgoing ones as well, to make sure that you've got records of what you've consigned. And making sure when you're filling out those NVDs that they're correct and accurate and signed, and that they've been filled out in full as well. The other thing to remember before dispatching livestock is to make sure you've identified them with an NLIS device as well, because that's a requirement before they leave your property. They need to be NLIS identified as well. And just some tricks and tricks. 2 days of arrival, if you're the receiving party, just remember it's your responsibility to record that movement in the database. So if you do use an agent, or you're buying through different selling platforms like Gumtree or Auctions Plus or Facebook, you need to do that movement yourself when those animals arrive onto the property. And then if you are consigning livestock, again, making sure you're using that national vendor declaration to move them off your pick as well. In terms of NVDs, we have both the paper books as well as the electronic National Vendor Declaration System. So the eNVD has a web platform, and we also have an app now that works on mobile devices. That the mobile app works offline. So if you don't have connectivity, you can use it to create an eNVD and then share it with transporters through QR codes as well. So we're making lots of changes and enhancements to try and make it better and better every week. But it actually improves the accuracy of the data. We get real-time information on traceability, which really supports traceability nationally. And you can share it multiple ways as well. It also centralizes the storage of it, so you don't have to worry about where your book is or your old copies are or anything like that. It's all in one place for you. But if you are using the paper versions, making sure that you can read the handwriting, that you've answered all the questions properly, you've signed it, you haven't answered questions both yes and no, because that doesn't work when you're trying to consign livestock. It's either you've got to answer the questions properly, and making sure that if you're making changes to that document, that you're initialing those changes, not using whiteout, and it's one NVD for multiple consignments is not allowed. So just some tips around the NVD system, and there's lots of help and resources available if you're looking to do the eNVD. We're available to help you, and there's loads of videos as well, and how-to tips on our website. And speaking of our website, we have loads of resources as well around LPA. So we have templates galore that will help you meet all the requirements I've just run through. So there's templates for literally everything. You can keep them online, you can print them off, you can have them on your computer, any which way that you like to do it. If you use farm software, keeping records in that's equally as fine. We just have these templates available for free in case you're looking to use them as well. Now moving on to the National Livestock Identification System, or the NLIS as we call it for short. So NLIS has three main components, and NLIS is legislated. So this has got the legislation in behind it for traceability, for biosecurity and emergency animal disease tracking purposes. So the three key elements of NLIS is your property identification codes, which you'll all get through your registered business process with the Queensland government. Also then buying your livestock tags or your NLIS approved devices, and then recording those movements in the central database or the NLIS database. So those three things all work together to provide lifetime traceability for our animals, and really important to protect our biosecurity system. So in terms of applying devices to your livestock, some key things to know is they need to be identified with an eID before moving off your property. So if they're born on your property, you'll put on a breeder tag, which for cattle is white, and for sheep and goats is either yellow or the year of birth colours there on screen. And if the animal has lost their tag while it's been on your property and it's not been born on your property, you can apply a post-breeder device. So for cattle, that's an orange tag, and for sheep and goats, it's a pink tag as well. So if they do fall out, that's what you need to do, especially if they've not been born on your property. It's important if you do introduce livestock routinely that you keep a supply of replacement devices and replacement post-breeder devices as well, and replace them as they go missing, or at least before they leave the property, so you don't get caught out when you're about to dispatch. Now, some important things to note, especially with the shift to sheep and goats using eIDs as well. They are species specific for sheep and goats because the tags are physically the same materials. They're actually coded and are species specific though. So when you order those tags, make sure you're ordering them for the right species, so whether it's sheep or goats. And then if you have sheep and goats on your property, so both of them, and you've got two sets, make sure you know which is which and applying the right ones to the right animals. The way to tell is on the outside of the tag. It'll actually be printed with a bunch of letters, which tells you lots of different things about it's your pick, who made that tag, the year it was made, and a serial number. There's actually a letter on there around the species. So for sheep, if it's a breeder tag for sheep, it'll have an S on it or a T on it if it's a post-breeder tag for sheep. And then for goats, you've got K and L. So K and L for goats and S and T for sheep. If you have both sheep and goats on your property, that's how you can tell which physical tags are different. We can't at the moment change the species designation once they're in the database and registered on your pick. So it's really important that when you order, that you're indicating that, which when you get your order form tag from Queensland government, they'll actually specify that as well. So just a key thing to remember there. And for our sheep and goat producers, these are the approved NLIS eIDs for sheep and goats that are available. So there's a lot of different types. We have some wraparound ones, and we also have some a single pin and a dual pin button type tag. It's really important to have a look at which tags you think might suit your operation best. And if you're having issues with retention, maybe try a different one. Depending on the type of fencing or vegetation you have, it might determine what tags are suitable or more suitable or less suitable for you. So there is a goat leg band available as well if you have earless goats per se. But these are the approved listings that you can order as well. In terms of placing your ear tags, making sure that you're placing it in the right place is really, really critical for retention. So if you're having retention issues and you're looking at your ears and then the tags aren't in the right spot, that can be a key reason why they're not staying in. Also making sure you're using the correct applicator. So each device is approved with an applicator, and it's important that you use that right applicator to get the best application and ultimately the best retention for that tag as well. So really following your instructions, making sure the pin's sharp and in good condition is also really good tips as well around getting good retention out of your devices. And finally, before I hand over to George, I'll just talk you through around recording livestock movements in the NLIS database. So I did mention it before around the person who's receiving livestock is the responsible person for doing the transfer. It helps if you're selling to a sale yard or to a feedlot or a processor because they're the ones that are doing that transfer for you. If you are selling to another producer, that other producer is responsible for doing that transfer. So it's important to check that it's been done and those animals have moved off your property. Equally, if you're receiving in livestock from another producer, that you're doing that transfer as well. So just a reminder around selling platforms like Auctions Plus don't do those transfers for you. So you really need to take responsibility for that. If you're using agents or third parties or a sale yard, making sure you're getting an upload ID, which is like a receipt number for that upload in the database that you can go and check yourself. And you can also link in the NVD serial number that's on your National Vendor Declaration into that transfer, which then links together your LPA and that NVD with the NLIS transfer. So really helping bolster that traceability. The other tip is if you don't have an NLIS account, it's free to grab one and log on and create one and have a play in the system, as George will show you. You can't break it. And the more and more you play with it and click around in it, the more familiar you get, the easier it feels. So don't be scared. If you haven't got an account, I would suggest to get one as well. But that's the end of me. And so I'll introduce George. So George is going to run you through the demonstrations of NLIS. So George, over to you.
Thank you. Share my screen. Yeah, so today I'll go through a bit what Elizabeth said and Sri also mentioned, logging into the database, running a few reports and doing some transactions. So we'll start off by going to the website. So it's NLIS.com.au. And what we're going to do today is log in via My MLA. So this bit down here, log in via My MLA. So you'll have to set this up initially. So I'll click on log in via My MLA. And access this time is via one password and an email address. So you no longer have to remember all the different accounts. For LPA, you've got your LPA PIC and LPA number. For NLIS, you've got your NLIS user ID and a password. So the concept of MyMLA is to put all your MLA products together, which is LPA, MSA, NLIS, ENVDs, My Feedback. You have to link them all once only, and then from there go to MyMLA, login, and then you can access these products if you've got them linked. Today we're just going to go through NLIS. So we'll go to continue to NLIS. And you can see I've got two accounts linked to my MyMLA account. Today I'm going to go to my producer account. Now I'm into this producer account. This is the home page of a producer account. And this is what you'll see. So the first thing is, see this blue section up the top. Click on the help. Click on help tools. And there are all the different tech tips or user guides we have available. There's a lot there. If you are having troubles using the system, go in and have a look to see the relevant tech tip or user guide. I'll close that down. And for the purpose of this exercise, then generally I always go through and I hide this header. I'll click on hide header, the top right-hand side. This gives us a lot more real estate to play with. Now, a lot of you who've used it before would have done so because you're cattle producers. So the first thing you want to do is you want to add sheep. So you go, I want to change my types of livestock. I've already done this. Click on go. And we say, okay, I've got sheep now, individual. You may have only had the sheep mobs ticked before, but now we're going to eID for sheep and goats. They're now added here. So click continue. And if you're changing between using the system for your sheep or cattle, after you've linked it into your system, all your functions are available here. All your species or species types are here. So we're going to do sheep individual today. And now we're ready to go. So what do I want to do today? I want to change your livestock type, which we just did, edit your account details. It's quite important to keep your email up to date, email and phone number up to date, because we need to contact people, need to contact you for any updates, for any maintenance time. And also, I'll show you later, when you do a transfer or someone else does the transfer and your tag or your property is involved, we can email you notifications. So make sure you click on this edit my account details and update your details. Then the system is broken up into two bits. Notify the database of, which is these bits here. That's changing data. That is putting an inactive status on a tag, transferring an animal, doing a PIC reconciliation, editing files you've uploaded before. So that's that's the doing part. And then this is the reporting. All the different reports we have in the system available for producers. But today we're going to go through livestock moved onto my property. We're going to use this sheep, goat, SA camelids is the South American camelids, which is the alpacas and llamas. So we'll click on this one and hit go. There's always 2 or 3 ways to do a transaction. You can do it on screen, upload a file, or you can pick some tags. Now, because these animals coming onto my property, I've only got 2 choices. I can't select tags from other people's properties. So these are the 2 ways we can do it. So today I'm going to use, I want to type in the details. And if I'm going too fast for some of you, just remember you can actually watch this video later, and while you're looking at the video, you can be doing your transaction yourself. So here's where we enter the tag numbers, and that's not it. Got a heap of tag numbers which I've copied before. These are some tag numbers. And you notice, and Elizabeth did show you, that's the outside visual tag number. And this is the inside number, the microchip number, the RFID number. So I've gone out, scanned some animals, got some tags. We're moving from this property, QBZZ, and they're moving on. Where they're coming from? They're coming from QBZZ2222, and these are my properties. So they're moving onto this property here. An NVD WABWA number. If you're using the eNVD, they always start with a 4. They move today. And this is where it's a little bit different to the cattle one. It's asking you for the number of head. Now there's 14 tag numbers here. As I said, I've got a combination of the visual number or the electronic number, and you can use either. It makes no difference. You don't use both, you use either. So if you have a scanner or a reader, you'll get this number. And if you're reading the animal's tag visually, then you'll get this number. Now there's 14 tags here, but there's 20 head. And obviously the difference is the 6 head, which are untagged sheep. There's a phase-in approach for sheep, eID, so you don't have to tag all the lambs. You only have to tag lambs born after 1 January. So if you have animals that are, or sheep that are born in November, December this year, and one born in January, February, you might have combination. So the whole idea is we know 20 animals have moved onto this property from this property. And these are the 14 individual animals. We continue. Gives you a confirmation. Is this what you want to do? They're going to this property, from this property. Again, just confirmation. Number heads 20. They're the tag numbers. We hit send. And something Elizabeth mentioned. You get a receipt number or an upload ID. Now we get 2. That's the original upload ID for that file we just sent, and it splits the file into 2. The one for the 14 tags, and then the number of head 20. So it does the mob-based movement of 20 head, as well as the 14 individual tags. And you're often asked if you've been audited, or the State Departments have asked, have you done your transfer? Or if you buy animals and you're a stock agent, or the person you're buying them from says they're doing the upload for you, you always ask for this upload ID so we can confirm it. So we've done the upload. We're going to have a look to see of the results. So click on View My Transaction History. And this is what we've done today. So we're going to look at all the things we've done from the 29th of July to the 29th of July, so that's today. And there's that upload we just did. That's the complete upload. So that's both the 14 movements and the 20 head. And we see we've got a warning and a complete. We click on the warning. It's going to tell us one of these animals was not on the property that we said it came from. Remember, we said they all came from that QBZZ2222. Well, this one wasn't on QBZZ2222. Wasn't on this pick. It was actually on the original pick, which is at QKZZ1111. I'm going to do this as an example to show you. So keeping your details up to date, like I said earlier, means that this property, QKZZ1111, this tag was taken off their pick, but it wasn't registered to them. Maybe they sold it to QBZZ. Maybe they sold it to that property. Maybe it jumped the fence. We don't know. All we know is it was registered to this property, but was transferred off this property. So we notify all those involved. The person who did the upload, the person where he said the animals came from, and where we knew the tag last was. So that's your warning. And a warning means the transfer did occur. Error means the transfer did not occur. And that's usually because the animal or the tag was not in the database. Someone's written the tag number incorrectly, does not exist. So we can't actually move something that doesn't exist. Therefore, you'll get an error message rather than a warning. So that's the main difference between the 3 different types of files uploads. So you get complete, the warning, and error. Warning means it went through but had issues. Error means it didn't go through. And complete means the file went through with no errors whatsoever. So I'll go back to home. And that's how you upload a transfer. And that's your legal obligation if you're receiving animals that you have to notify the database. We quite often hear through audits, the person who I got them from said they were going to do it, agents said they're going to do it, and that's fine. But just make sure you check, and this is how you can check by asking for upload ID, or you go, I want to, this time run reports. Livestock view devices on my property. So look at what has moved onto my property, livestock that have moved onto my property, and what's moved on today. So you bought animals, they said they've done the transfer, no results. So we go back a couple of dates. Sorry, livestock transferred onto property, not recorded. What's moved on? The tags I put in were actually cattle tags. That's the other thing. So the cattle tags I put in come up as cattle, so you just need to make sure you change the species. So rookie error. So there's the 14 tags. I said there were 14. That's that odd tag that came out that was on the different property. Hence, it's lost its lifetime traceability. Again, yeah, buy animals, someone does a transfer for you, run this report, livestock transferred onto pig. Excuse me. So they're your basic reports. If you're moving animals off your property and you do the transfer, you want to confirm to someone, you can't see what's on their property, but you run the same thing, livestock transferred off pig. You came off this property and all species, the same 14 head, with different report this time. This is what's moved off your property. So if you do it for someone, you say, here's the results. You can get a screenshot of this and they can see what's moved off their property. A whole list of other reports, what's currently on the property, tags you've purchased. It's a good report to use if you want to download what they call the tag bucket file. And this can be used for all species, cattle, sheep, doesn't matter what it is. And you select down here, export. You can export the tag numbers and you download that into your software systems. So I'll go back home. And the last thing we won't do today, but we'll click on I want to notify database of. It's a PIC reconciliation. And you go through the process of doing a PIC reconciliation. It's very simple to follow. And like Elizabeth said, have a go at the system. You can't break it. It gives you information on the screen, what you need to do. There's a lot of reports, a lot of help tools. And obviously there's a restriction of 10,000 tags because of the numbers. I always type in the details, and here's where you put in all your tag numbers. Make sure you scan the tags that are in animals' ears and unused tags in the drawer. Follow this process and it will guide you through how to do a PIC reconciliation. People have asked, I know I was asked by two people from Queensland just last week about PIC reconciliation, so I'll just throw that in quickly. So just follow the screen. You can't break the system. Run reports to see movements on, movements off. And as Elizabeth said, get an account if you don't have one already. That ends up my session.
Thank
Back to you,
you,
Elizabeth.
George.
Back to you, Cherie.
Thanks, George. That was excellent. I'd now like to bring in Janet Valier from Queensland to take you through some specific information for sheep and goat EID in Queensland. So, Janet, would you like to come in?
Thanks very much, Cherie, and thanks very much to George and Elizabeth for the information we've already provided this morning. It was great to see, and there seems to be some great questions coming through as well. So my name's Janet Valier, and I look after the livestock traceability portfolio for the Queensland Government. And we're going to take you through what our requirements are for sheep and goat EID coming through for January 1, 2025. So the Queensland Government is committed to the introduction of mandatory sheep and goat eID to strengthen our livestock traceability as part of the national initiative. Queensland will be transitioning to eID for sheep and goats within 2 stages. The first being all lambs and kids born after the 1st of January 2025 must be identified with an NLIS eID accredited device before leaving the property of birth. All other livestock or all other sheep and goats will be required to be bearing an eID device as of the 1st of January 2027. So from the 1st of January 2027, any sheep and goats moving off their property, off any property of residence, will be required to have an eID fitted. Financial assistance will be eligible to the sheep and goat industry participants to support the compliance, and information on this will be available very, very soon. Next, please. Thank you. So let's talk about the rebate scheme and what that looks like for producers. So producers will be available to make a claim against their pick. So it's 1 claim per pick. That's 50% of all eligible costs, up to $1,600 per pick. So the eligible items are eID readers for NLIS accredited devices, or an NLIS eID accredited device for sheep and goats. Therefore, you can either make an order and make a claim against tags, or you can also make a claim against readers. There's certain things you must do to be able to claim, and these are the following. So you must have a current biosecurity entity registration. It is a requirement in Queensland, if you hold any of the threshold amount of livestock, that you must be registered with this department. So part of your registration requirement is you must also do your renewal every 3 years. That makes sure that the information that we hold on our register is true and correct should we get a disease outbreak and we need to contact you as soon as possible. So making sure you have met your renewal requirement, it is a legislative requirement, every 3 years is very, very important as part of this rebate scheme as well. So as we go through this process, you'll need to make sure that you have a current RBE registration, that you have at least 30 sheep and goats registered against a pick on that registration, and that you've only received, this is the only scheme that you've applied for to receive a rebate for, and you must agree to be audited if requested. Now, the rebate scheme for producers will be administered by QRider, and this rebate will be opening this week. On to the next slide, please. We also have rebates available to livestock agents. They may also claim up to 50% of costs on eligible items, which up to $1,600. So that is about eID readers for accredited devices. So we're making sure that all sectors of the industry are able to meet the requirement to read and upload the information for livestock moving. For agents, they must have an ABN, they must have an NLIS account, and within the last 12 months have made a commitment to moving livestock for sheep and goats in Queensland. They must also have a principal place of business being registered in Queensland and only receive the scheme within Queensland PICs. Must also agree to be audited if requested. Agents are also able to make the application through QRider. You'll see that on both of these slides, the information down the bottom for QRider has been provided. If you go to the QRider website, the information of the scheme for producers and agents are listed there. Next one, please. We've also made sure that sale yards haven't missed out and are also able to meet the requirements for sheep and goat eID as it comes in. So that allows the agents to be able to, sale yards to be able to put in mechanisms so that they're able to read any sheep or goat that comes into their sale yard as of the 1st of January 2025. Same information is required. They must have a current RBE registration associated with the sale yard and have met their requirements for the legislative requirements, which is regards to doing their renewal. So we know the information is up to date, but also that they've made it sure that they've done their uploads. So there is a requirement for traceability that whenever livestock move, that they must be identified within a database. We will be checking these things as we go through on people's applications to make sure that they have met their requirement moving forward and be able to claim for this rebate system. Next, please. Processes are exactly the same. So to be eligible of 50% of cost, up to a certain amount. Now that depends on how many animals pass through their processing establishment on a weekly basis, and you'll see the information is up there. Eligible items are for readers and associated software. They must have met their RBE requirements, so they must be able to that update and have provided their renewal status. The process facility must also have a current Safe Food Queensland registration and have done their mob-based movement application, so we can check to make sure that they are meeting that requirement, and they can only receive this rebate within Queensland. They will also need to be agreed to be audited if requested. Before we go any further, there's certain things you must need to do before you apply for the rebate. So ensure your RBE information is up to date, which we've just talked about. Make sure that your landowner information is up to date, that you have the right information attached to your PIC number. Please, we'll also make sure that the lotting plan information that you've provided on your registration is current, and that your animal numbers and production systems are also correct. Your registration must be renewed every 3 years. We do have an online portal system. Now that portal is available 24/7 for self-service of your biosecurity entity registration. You can register within that process. You can update your details. You can add and remove land parcels, and you can also do your renewal on this process as well. And if you do need to pay a fee, you can also pay through that system. So the RBE portal is available 24/7 for you to manage your RBE details. You must also keep your receipts for your eID devices and reader purchases. We are making sure that you are able to claim as from when this information was first published. So we've decided to go back to the 1st of the 1st, 23. So if you have bought an eID devices in that time, or you have bought a reader and you have your receipts, you are able to claim using that information. So that's going back to the 1st of the 1st, 23, so last year. Processors and sale yards must also make sure that they've met their NLIS requirements to be able to make a claim. One thing that I didn't mention just before is that the agents and the sale yards will be able to make their application through our website. So that information should be up this week and you'll be able to make claim there. On to the next, please. Just a reminder, interstate industry requirements, please. If you market your livestock to go to a different state or territory, you must meet the requirements of that accepting state. You must also meet the requirements of our state. So as of the 1st of January 2025, that is when eID becomes apparent in Queensland. If you're moving into New South Wales or Victoria or any other state, please check with that state before you go any further so we can make sure that you're meeting those requirements before you enter that state. Next slide, please. I see a few questions coming up about harvested rangeland goats. So we'll talk about the harvested rangeland goat process here in Queensland. It is a requirement if you're moving harvested rangeland goats that you have an approval process in place. So we will require that if you want to move on the device-free pathway, that one, you are registered as an RBE, a registered biosecurity entity, against the pits to which you are capturing those livestock. It is a requirement. If you don't have an RBE already, you'll need to apply. You can do that through the portal. The reason why we're doing this is to enhance the traceability, and we know who is collecting harvested rangeland goats in Queensland and where they're moving them to. So there is a requirement if you move livestock in Queensland without a device, that require a device, you must have an inspector's approval to do so. This has not changed. Harvested rangeland goats, people will be required to fill in an application so they can be registered within our system and receive an approval to move those harvested rangeland goats. You'll use that approval process to provide to LPA, so you'll be able to do your LPA accreditation. Just remember, the harvested rangeland goat, and you've already been told this today, is one that's been captured from a wild state, has not been born as a result of a managed breeding program, and has not been subject to any husbandry procedure or treatment. So a reminder, if you are capturing harvested rangeland goats, you will also have to have managed goats attached to your RBE for those animals that when they are brought in, do not meet that requirement due to having to perform some form of husbandry on those animals. So just please be aware of that. We will be starting this process very, very soon. So the application process, if you intend to do harvested rangeland goats, please keep an eye out on our website. Make time to fill in that application and get your approval before the 1st of January 2025. For further information, please have a look at our engagement hub or come to our website. There's a lot of information about Sheep and Goat eID for Queensland. Of course, you can always call our customer service centre on 13 25 23. Thank you for listening.
Thanks very much, Janet. That was really informative. Thank you also to everyone who attended today and all your questions. There's quite a lot of activity in the Q&A today, which is great to see. As I mentioned earlier, we will be sending out the Q&A document, so you get all your questions, your answers, plus the slides for today, the recording, so you can review that and go back in your own time. And you can also always call either the Queensland Department or ISC if you have specific questions that weren't covered or there's some information that you still need. We've just put a survey into our chat that we would be really appreciative if you could fill in. This gives us really useful feedback on the webinar, how it went, and if there's any other topics that you'd like us to cover in the future. But yeah, I'd just like to say a big thank you to everyone who came along today, and thank you to our panelists, Janet, George, Elizabeth, for your information and insights into the integrity system. It's really, really useful. And we look forward to catching up at the next webinar that ISC runs. So in the meantime, take care and we'll be in touch. Thank you.